Hello, everyone, and welcome back to They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy. And my awesome guest today is someone who I've known for a few years and actually got to know him much better over the last 6 months. But I've seen the work that he does for professionals in several spaces, for individuals and entrepreneurs who are growing their impact, their influence. And we're going to dig into, yes, how he does that, but also just a really good human being running a good business that delivers a high quality service. So maybe we can even touch on how do you maintain high quality at scale and all sorts of cool things. I know we're going to have a fantastic discussion. So I'm really excited to have my friend on here, Michael DeLon of Paperback Expert. Michael, welcome to the show.
Charlie, thank you for having me. It's really an honor. I listen to your show and I'm just beside myself that I can actually be here.
It's going to be a good time. So you know how it goes. You know what's coming next. So what is the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
You know, Charlie, the one thing that I found out they don't teach in law school is that being an Amazon best-selling author will gain you more clients than being an amazing attorney.
Oh, we're going to have to chew on that one, Michael. So inevitably there's someone going right now. They're going, uh-oh, do I have a pitch coming? And no, that's not what this is. It's that we're going to talk about this expertise that you really have developed for professionals that comes out of this whole world of authority marketing, direct marketing, all these cool tools that I think are under investigated most of the time in the professional sphere, which is why what this really is like we're offering people. I don't like using the word hack. I really need to figure out a better term than the word hack. It's really it's even loophole. People don't like it. It is a truth that is unseen by most in how to reach people. And, you know, I said early on, influence and impact. So let's unpack this whole being a bestseller, being an author. You make this bold statement, being an Amazon bestseller is that valuable. So let's just, I'm gonna do the pun here. Let's open the book on what this means in marketing and what you mean when you say it has that level of impact.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, that's awesome. I'm glad that we are on the same page as we go into this. So we're going to make sure that we cover all of the details. Sorry. I'm a dad, man. I'm just like you. We got to have these jokes, these puns and everything. So being on your show, you know, you got to have a good spine. And so let's go. So
best episode ever. Oh Lord.
Okay. Woo. Now, okay. Let's get into it. Here's what we really have to understand about marketing is that marketing happens in the mind of your audience. It's how they think about you. Okay? So if I say, share real quick. Charlie, who's the first man who ever walked on the moon?
Neil Armstrong.
Okay. And if I said over or pizza delivery, 30 minutes or less guaranteed, who comes to mind?
Domino's.
Why? We weren't talking about moonwalks, astronauts, or pizza, but you instantly knew those. It's because our mind categorizes information, right, in certain ways. And then we have these, what we call category ladders in our mind, these little tiny ladders. So in astronauts and men on the moon, Neil Armstrong's on the top rung of the ladder. Who's number two? Who's the second man to walk on the moon? Nobody knows. So anyway,
the worst part is I'll actually tell you, Michael, I literally listened to something recently where they talked about who was the second man to walk on the moon. And I can't remember the name, even though I know I heard that information in the last year.
Yep. I've never had anybody tell me. His name's Buzz Aldrin. And but nobody knows.
Was Buzz the second one? For some reason, I thought it was like a piece of trivia that I was.
Oh, yeah. No, Buzz is number two. Anyway, in the world of marketing, in the world of law, if you're a great estate planning attorney or whatever, if you lead with that, then you're on a big old ladder of estate planning attorneys, blah, blah, blah. But if you can position yourself differently so that people think of you differently, you immediately go to the top of their ladder, and you'll get so much more business because you've changed, you've influenced how people think about you. So that's why when we create a book for a client, we make them an Amazon best-selling author, because in the mind of the public, that's a big deal. You must be special. You've got something to say. You're different. And when you're on a podcast and they interview you as, hey, this is Amazon best-selling author Charlie Mann. He wrote the book Law Firm Alchemy, right? Or whatever. Mm. I'm listening. That's why it's so important. It's how the mind thinks. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think about the fact that when people, especially like in the circles that we walk in, talk in, etc., when people talk about having a problem, what's one of the first things that they tend to recommend is someone in the room says, hey, there's this book that I read about that, right? They really do go to, very rarely do they say, oh, I saw a blog about, right? That's just lower down on the list. It's not that it doesn't exist. It's just, It's not on the same level as I wrote the literal book on it. And I have to correct myself from earlier. I'm glad that we ended up getting to Buzz Aldrin, because the episode was about the guy who had to stay on the ship, who had to stay, who had to stay behind. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be terrible to go to the moon and have to stay in the ship?
Yeah, that would be rough, right? Because they need So, okay. This idea of creating the ladder, of being memorable, of being top of mind. Now, here's where we get into this interesting intersection of brand, which is kind of what we're talking about in a way, but also this very direct, locked in type of marketing. And the book seems to sit at an intersection of those ideas. So how does it play into both developing that sense of brand, of virality, if we want to use a more modern social term, but also then in the direct response marketing category?
Yeah. Oh, love it. In great ways. So brand is that, what's different about you? What's that identity, right? To set you apart. But then if you only have that, you're not giving somebody a way to take that next step. You're kind of leaving money on the table. So obviously your book is a great next step when it's on your website as a lead gen, right? Why don't you get a free copy of my book on my website? Obviously we request email to get it in there.
Yes.
Then you have a follow-up funnel. Thank you page comes up. Beautiful picture of Charlie, said, hey, thank you so much for downloading a copy of my book. I would love to mail you a free copy so that you can dog-ear it, underline, highlight. It's got great information that really is helpful to you. Just tell me where to mail it. It'll be in your hands in a couple of days. So you start building your list. So that's one. But what about referrals? Okay, so many attorneys think, lead gen and intake, which is amazing. We still need that. But how about happy clients and handing a copy of your book to a happy client and say, would you do me a favor and just, as you're talking with people, how we've helped you set up this estate plan, would you just say, here's the person we used. When you need an attorney, read their book. They were amazing. I'd love to make an introduction. Would you do that for me? Man, if you've got happy clients, they are thrilled to go, hey, my guy wrote the book on it, right? So the direct response aspect of marketing ties perfectly with having an authority piece called a book. And the other cool thing is books have shelf life. People don't throw books away. Yeah. It's sacrilegious, dude. And so your book's going to hang around their house for a long, long time because they may not be in the market today for what you need.
So that's a huge point right there. That idea of people are not always ready for what you're selling. I think this is really interesting, Michael. I had a conversation as we're recording this 2 days ago with a coaching client who, when he was first introduced to this idea, he's a personal injury attorney. When he was first heard this idea of, hey, there are people who get in car accidents and might not talk with an attorney for another 9 or 12 months after the accident. His first reaction was a series of expletives regarding the fact that is not true, right? And then all of a sudden he started trying some of this marketing that you're talking about. He did the book. He did a newsletter. He started piling on these ways to stay in touch and nurture people. And all of a sudden these calls were coming in that were able to double his overall pile of clients, like the new client acquisition, just because at least he had the faith to start implementing this. Now, I know that one of the gaps that people have is, as an attorney, it's very easy to say, yeah, I understand how that might work in recommending a fitness book, right? We can understand that. They've had this experience before, but there's this idea of no one wants to read the book about car accident claims, estate planning, divorce, etc. Why is there that gap, that mindset gap for professionals?
Yeah, because, well, number one, they're too close to it. And number two, they're not telling their story. Okay. People don't want to understand the law. I could care less. I want to know your story. I want to connect with you and bond with you so that you're the right person for me. Can I give you an example real quick?
Please do.
Attorney, personal injury attorney down in Florida. He came to me a few years ago, and he was the David against two Goliaths in his market. Okay. And he said, Michael, I've got to find a way to market myself, and I want to be an author. I said, okay, great. So we got a story. We have it a whole process. I said, William, why do you live where you live? Why are you in Florida? So he went down to Florida on a college scholarship. He was a baseball player. He was heading towards the pros as a pitcher. Second year in college, he threw his arm out. Had to have surgery, went through rehabilitation, killed his baseball career, killed his college scholarship. So he pivoted, graduated, became a personal injury attorney. I said, William, have you ever told that story to anybody? And he says, no, we're going to. So we took that story, Charlie, we rebranded him, we repositioned, we published his book, When Life Throws You a Curveball.
Look at that.
What to Do After You've Been in a Serious Accident by William Franke, baseball player turned trusted attorney. Now, are you going to read that book? Yeah, because it's a story where he tells about his case and other people he's helped. And he goes on TV on the morning shows and says, you know what? If life's throwing you a curveball, you've been hit by a truck, you got bit by a dog, you slipped and fell at work. I get it. Life threw me a curveball, and I've been there, and I want to help you get better and get the settlement you deserve. Do you think that makes any difference in his marketing and how people bond with him? Now, direct response, right? So he's on TV, direct response, go get a cup. He's obviously all over social media and things, but he also goes around to the colleges and the high schools who have sports teams, and he tells his story. He comes in as a featured speaker, and then he gives his book out to all of the coaches and all of the parents, doing exactly what you told the other attorney to do, is preconditioning people to hire you so that when they have the accident, they're not looking for a billboard or scanning their Google phone. They're going, I'm calling that baseball attorney guy. That's how you pivot your marketing long-term, by telling a story that is uniquely you, that brands you differently than the Goliaths that are out there, so you can win the battle.
I mean, it's a really powerful concept for sure. Now, the gap for most is one, being willing to tell their story, and two, actually getting it produced. And let's first talk from the finding the story, because I do know that there are a lot of attorneys who, I can think of a coaching client, for example, who I know has this type of story to tell. He's had a kidney transplant, just easy. We can click in, tell that story. But I think a lot of attorneys struggle with, I don't have that dramatic moment, or maybe there's the real drama that I have, I'm not willing to expose that to the world. How do we find that authorship opportunity for those individuals?
Yeah. So on the first one, the guy who says, I don't have one, I disagree. You do. I've got an attorney client who's in Hawaii, and he said, Michael, I'm the most boring attorney you'll ever meet.
I've heard attorneys say exactly that phrase.
And I said, I disagree. I doubt that. And so we got his story. He's got a really fun story, and we wove it into his book. It's not as dramatic as the one I just shared, but it's enough to position him differently than Smith's John & Johnson down at it's just like boring.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, on the person who doesn't want to share the story, we have good conversations with them. And really what your book is, it's not about putting the spotlight on you like you're on Broadway stage. That's not what it's about. It's about you walking into a birthday party or sitting down with somebody at a coffee shop and getting to know them and saying, Charlie, tell me your story. Who are you? How did you get here? And through that, we bond with people. And as I say, when you meet somebody, the first 5 minutes is you're doing that dance, right? Trying to find common ground and things.
Yeah.
Why do we wait? Let them do that and share the story of how this is my story. This is who I am. And most people are going to bond with you because of the emotions. We make decisions emotionally first. And that's why you need to share your story. It's really a matter of convincing them that this is where relationships are formed, and that's the foundation of a good client is coming to you at that level.
So if we're able to pull out that story, and actually maybe it would be really helpful for people who are listening, would there be a couple of primer questions that they could ask themselves to seek that story?
Sure. Here's the easy way to do it. Take a friend, go out to the coffee shop, have your computer or your phone with a recording device. Have them ask you, here are the questions. Tell me about your family growing up. Okay. Brothers, sisters, and things. What sports hobbies did you play then? What do you do now for fun? Why do you live where you live? Because you can live anywhere in the world. What is the path that brought you to where you are today?
Ooh, I like that.
And when you just talk and record all this, then go back and listen to it. And what you're going to find some themes start popping up. And those themes are what bring that branding to you to go, that's interesting. I never knew that I had that in me. But it's just taking a friend out and having the conversations. Those are 4 of the 8 questions that we ask our clients. And the more information they give me, I see the thread in their life, and it's boom. So I tell people all the time, Charlie, I don't create your brand. I discover it.
I like that.
Through questions. Everybody has a story. They're just not telling it.
I really like that. So if they've managed to unlock what their story might be, and they're thinking, okay, I actually might have a story to tell, I think the next step is a lot of times they go, well, I feel like my story is a pamphlet, not a book, even though I'm interested in writing a book. So how do we move from I've now got this small story to let's turn this into a book, and a book that then matches up with my law firm?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the story becomes the theme of the book. And then the challenges and situations your clients are in, the questions you answer every week, those kind of become the chapters of the story, right? One of the things I tell people, Charlie, is nobody likes walking into a dark room that they've never been in before. You don't know where the furniture is, right? So why do we expect our clients to want to do that? So we walk them through the process of here's what it's like to work with our firm. Here are some of the challenges people face. Here's how we help people, right? And you can talk about cases and families that you've helped without getting into the legal aspects of it by telling stories, right? Why do we all go to movies? Why do we love Netflix and Amazon Prime? Because there's stories. Just tell stories, and then our writers help bring the theme of you through every chapter so it's cohesive. That's how we do it.
Okay, there's something on there that my brain immediately latched onto based on what I did in the introduction that I have to explore, which is you've developed this team of writers who can help tell these stories. And I see this as an interesting analog for lawyers who sometimes struggle with how does someone produce a service at the same level that I am capable of producing. And you, Michael, you're not personally authoring all of these books. You have people who take care of it. I'm really curious from a trusting people, training people up to deliver that service. What have you discovered as an entrepreneur that makes you successful in that way?
That we have to have a process of onboarding our writers, right? And vetting them, but onboarding them into our world because we do things a little differently, and making sure they're not only expert at writing and crafting in English, but they're also really good at connecting with clients. Because if you get a writer who you just don't mesh with, Charlie, you're not giving me the content I need for your book. Because I want your book to sound like you. I want it to have your ethos. And for that to happen, you've got to have all the barriers down. It's got to be like me and you talking. And so we've got a very good process of vetting writers in this case. We do it with all of our team members. And then orienting them or onboarding them to the paperback expert way, and then mentoring them through the first couple of books with a peer mentor to make sure they understand what's going on and how we do things. And then they're off to the races. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, and what I even want to dig into more there, because I think there's a lot of like gold in what you just said, frankly, especially the analog of the writer is serving the client, is telling the client's story, right? Which is such a parallel to an attorney is working on a client's case, which really is, depending on the practice area, is either telling a present story or writing a future story for that person through the service they provide. And you talk about creating that comfort level. I mean, it is a relationship between the lawyer and the client that requires the client to open up. And I know that I have coaching clients who struggle with finding attorneys who are willing or are able to get people to open up. But you're helping writers, which, you know, a category of people who are predominantly introverted, we would say,
absolutely,
getting others to open up. How are you? Can you share a little insight, a little wisdom on that front?
Yeah, well, it comes through, well, number one, modeling, having a mentor in our staff who shows them. Obviously, we have hundreds of videos that are already done from other clients that we can show them to go, here's how we do this. And what we find is a lot of our writers have been ghost writers, right? Where somebody sends them information and then they write it and send it back.
Yeah.
Our process is a little different in that we use actually Zoom calls to interview our clients. And they're talking with the writer, and the feedback we get from our writers is, we love this because I actually get to talk with the client. And they get to know the client and how that client speaks, because you may have a certain phraseology that you use. We want that in the book, and that might get lost if you're just sending it to a manuscript. So we model for our writers this whole process, and they watch, they can always watch videos of other clients. But we find that it's seriously, Charlie, it's like sitting down across the table having a meal with somebody and just asking you questions about your business and your clients and what are the challenges they face and how do you help them with that. And we're all experts at what we do, right?
Right.
Every attorney we work with, they can talk about their business all day long. We just guide them and structure it through some simple questions. So what's in their head ends up on the written page. So it's not, there is no magic formula or anything. It's just how we've trained our writers to connect and ask questions and listen. And I don't understand. Tell me about that. And we don't, the cool thing, honestly, we're not attorneys, right? We're not financial, we're writers. So we come at every book as if we are a client, a potential client, and we don't let our attorney clients get into the weeds of case laws that nobody cares.
Yeah.
So we make sure that everything's there, but our writers are just real people, and you bond. You're right. You just bond with your writer because you're spending a few hours with them on Zoom. I don't know if that answered that question or not, but that's how
it does. Okay. I mean, it does, and I think, what I'm pulling out and like the notes that I think about giving to coaching clients, mastermind members, and everything in the future, and now everyone who's listening to this podcast are, what I heard you say, Michael, was we have some questions that, we kind of equip them with a framework to use. Then we also have the peer mentoring, so like shadowing and being able to get feedback. And then also a training library that just, and I love this, which is as simple as, hey, we're already recording these conversations. Why not have them listen to this? I think that's a missing gap, frankly, in a lot of businesses, of repurposing that type of client-facing material as training material.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And why not? It's there, right? And most people, we would say, okay, Charlie, you're my new writer. Way to go. Hey, there's your client. Go.
Right.
Why would we do it? That's such a bad experience for everybody. Yeah. And so it's pulling back as an entrepreneur and thinking about your business, your process, your people, the experience you want your clients to have. And when you just sit down and think and make a few notes, you go, oh, I could do it this way. And I find a lot of entrepreneurs don't spend enough time thinking.
It's true, right? They're so busy handling the day-to-day, the fires that they see happening. Now, I think that's true of literally every entrepreneur. I'm sure that you went through that phase with your own business. How did you conquer that moment?
Yeah, getting into some mastermind groups, honestly, with putting myself in rooms that had smarter people than me. reading a lot of books and realizing that if I were going to do some thinking about my business and really start to function as a CEO before I could honestly be there, because I was wearing so many hats, I started putting into my calendar, Charlie, a 1 hour block of time every week. And I used to call it focus time. Now I call it thinking time. And it's just like if a prospect wanted me, I mean, it's nobody gets that time. And in that time period, I would just think about one project or something that was going on in my business. I'll spend about 30 minutes thinking about, okay, what's going on? What am I trying to solve? Brainstorm, see if I can come up with an answer. If I can, great. If I can't, guess what? Next week's thinking time, that's what I'm doing.
That's right.
And so I started with 1 hour. Now I do 2 90-minute blocks every week. Because I know the value of it, but I start with 1 hour a week. Everybody can do that.
Yes. I love the practicality and appreciate the practicality of that. And I really hope that everyone listening to this has heard that statement. And it's so funny, Michael, because it's such an easy statement to make. And for folks like you and me, right, that idea of 1 hour a week set aside, or, a 90-minute block set aside for, and I appreciate that you relabeled it from focus time to thinking time. That linguistic shift has a huge impact.
It does.
Yeah. So I really appreciate that. And even though it's such a simple thing to say, it's just true, right? How do we, I remember Dan Kennedy, right? That's another place where you and I relate. Like, I remember Dan Kennedy listening to one of his programs about creating info products. And he said, look, the truth is most of these programs could be a single statement on an index card, but people won't buy it. And they also won't do it. They need all the other stuff surrounding the index card to make it true. So unfortunately, it is an index card truth. Schedule an hour of thinking time every week.
That's it.
People have to discover it for themselves.
They do. Yeah. But don't make it complex, right? KISS is that same thing. Keep it super simple. Keep it super simple. Get it on your calendar. And on my calendar, it's actually in red. All my appointments are like in blue or green or what. It's in red. So it stands out visually. And I just know I'm going on, Mondays at 2, thinking time.
There you go. Do you have any type of routine or way that you orient yourself when you go into thinking time to get the most out of it?
Oh, I 100% do. I don't know. So I read, and it'll be in my, as you end the podcast, what am I reading? The Road Less Stupid. Keith Cunningham. Everybody should go buy that book. Okay. Keith has lost more money than you and I will ever earn in our life. Okay. And it's a book that he has chapters about business. Then at the end of every chapter, he lists a bunch of questions that he has used in thinking time. So A, get the book, read it. But B, I don't know if you can see over here. I'll move it. That's my time. I call it my timeout chair, Charlie, because when you have kids and they misbehave, right? You send them to the corner for timeout. I put myself in timeout. That's my
For those, by the way, who aren't watching the video, there's literally like a wooden chair. It looks like a scene out of a horror movie, if I'm being honest, Michael. But it's a wooden rocking chair. It appears facing the corner of a brick or faux brick wall.
Totally. So, and one of my future books, Charlie, is going to be The Timeout Chair, Why Putting Yourself in the Corner is the Best Discipline You Will Ever Have.
I like it.
And so I sit in that chair. I have a pad of paper, actually pen and paper. I set a timer on my phone to shut everything off, right? So I'm looking in the corner, no distractions. I've got one question I'm trying to figure out or solve, and a pad of paper, and I hit go on my timer. And I usually think for 30 minutes uninterrupted, and anything that comes to my mind, I'm writing down. I got this from Keith Cunningham, right? That's why you need to read his book. But then after 30 minutes, the alarm goes off. I stop, I draw a line, and I look at all of the things I came up with, all the ideas. And I look for one or two that might actually be actionable. And then I would take that and put it on my calendar for next week to get it done. Or if I don't find anything, next week we do the exact same thing. But that's my process. I have a chair, I have a pad, I have a pen, I have a process, and that's what I do when I go into thinking time. So it's very structured. That's what I do. But I learned that from Keith Cunningham, The Road Less Stupid.
I love that. Okay, so I do want to revisit a little bit of the marketing discussion before we close things out here. right? Because that's core to what you do. When you have someone who launches their book, I think this is like we'll call this sort of the quote unquote final stage of, let's say you've managed to get a book written, right?
Sure.
You're launching a book. What do you see as the difference between success and failure in launching a book?
Yep. Consistency over time.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody says, do you have a book launch program? I've got to go out for the first week and just kill it and kill it, kill it. It's like, shut up. No, you're going to market this for life.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, you can have a big party and a book signing thing and invite your clients for the first month. And that's all well and good. What are you doing long term? So yes, it's on your website. How's your online presence, your LinkedIn profile? You need to change that to say Amazon bestselling author of, boom. Email signatures. Everybody has lovely email signatures. How about Charlie Mann, author of Law Firm Alchemy? Get a copy at Amazon or get a free copy here. Click, go to your website, right? So how do you do all of that? So it's honestly less about the big launch of my book, and it's more about consistency over time, because again, a book has shelf life. I wrote my book, Charlie, on marketing back in 2013. I still use it today to gain clients, get referrals, and grow my revenue. That's why I love books. Yeah. So it's dare I say, it's less about the launch. It's more about the ongoing systems of marketing that will teach you and give you, that happen over and over. So that just like the guy you talked about earlier, newsletters, I'm a big fan of newsletter, right?
Yeah.
Books, being top of mind, here's my marketing strategy that I learned from Roy Williams. I want to be the first one. I want to be the first person you think of and the one you feel the best about when you're ready for my service. If I can accomplish that in my marketing, game over.
Yeah. Yeah. That's yes. And I'll before having you plug, and then we'll do the last three questions, I will relay that Tim Grover, author of Relentless, right? He talks in the book about being relentless, or in the audiobook, which he was able to update, record a little later on. The book Relentless was not a hit when it first launched.
Yeah.
They made it a hit over time.
Yes.
Most of these smaller books, you're not going to launch, and you don't automatically become I don't know, the next Nir Eyal, right, who can now launch to a bigger audience, right? And AJ Jacobs, whoever. You're going to launch, you're going to wish it was something. It may not be that, but you didn't do it for the daggum launch. You did it for the fact that it's going to create clients over a long duration of time, and you forefront this thing over and over and over again, and you can get such extreme mileage because it's an asset. It's not a rental, it's an asset.
Love that. Right. Yeah, totally.
So, Michael, if people want to learn more about you, about Paperback Expert, where should they go to?
PaperbackExpert.com. That is the hub of all things Michael. You'll find me. You can find videos, free trainings, everything. PaperbackExpert.com.
Perfect. It sounds like you've already prepared for it, Michael. So the final trio question, which is, what are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
Love it. Well, reading, The Road Less Stupid. Quite honestly, for about my 7th time. If I open this up, every page is dog-eared, highlighted, underlined. The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. Watching, as a family, we are watching Agatha Christie's Poirot series with David Suchet.
Oh, all right.
Really cool. And then listening to, are you ready? Raising Kids with Big Baffling Behaviors by Robin Gobble. It is amazing because our kid, I've got 2 adopted daughters who are still in the house. One of them has effects from being adopted at 4.5, so she's got trauma. And we're trying to understand that, because she goes, and we're like, what in the world? She's not being disobedient. It's what's going on inside of her. And brother, this is new to us. So we are listening to Robin understand, how do you deal with big baffling behaviors? And it's really good. So that's what we're listening to.
That's phenomenal. God bless y'all for adopting kids and providing that home. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
That's
it's
fantastic.
great, man. It's been a blessing to our whole family. It's very cool. So
I'm sure. Michael, truly, I always appreciate your energy, your enthusiasm, your insight, wisdom, strategies, tactics, just everything that you bring to the table. It has always been not just a delight, but also informative and energizing whenever I interact with you. And I hope that's what everyone is taking away from this podcast is a combination of energy and practical steps. That's what I heard. There are things that I'm going to do based on what we've talked about today. So, Michael, thank you so much for all of that.
Charlotte, you're welcome. It's been quite a joy. I love you as a person and love being here and just grateful. Thank you, brother.
Oh, I love you too. Thank you so much, Michael.